There are people alive right now who are 90 years old, still walking without assistance, still thinking clearly, still waking up with energy every single morning. They didn't follow extreme diets. They didn't spend hours in the gym. Most of them never counted a single calorie in their lives. And yet, when researchers studied these people across different countries, different cultures, and completely different lifestyles, they found something unexpected. The same 5 behaviors kept appearing over and over again. Not supplements, not biohacks, not expensive routines. 5 simple daily habits that quietly interacted with their biology in ways that most people never consider. Today, we're going to break down exactly what those habits are, the real physiological mechanisms behind why they work, and a simple memory framework so you don't just understand this, you actually remember it and use it. Because understanding your body is only useful if it changes what you do. Before we continue, a quick note on transparency. Everything in this video is based on current research in metabolism, longevity science, and human physiology. It is intended for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before making major lifestyle changes. If you enjoy clear, science-based explanations about how the human body actually works, make sure to subscribe. Every week, we break down one topic in biology and connect it directly to real life. Before we get into the habits, we need to understand one thing clearly. Aging is not random. Most people treat aging like weather, something that just happens to you, something you can't control. You get older, your body breaks down, and eventually things stop working. But biologically, that picture is incomplete. What scientists have discovered over the last 2 decades is that aging is largely a process of accumulation. Damaged proteins build up inside cells. Inflammation increases slowly over years. Hormonal signals that once kept the body balanced begin to drift. Mitochondria, the structures inside your cells that produce energy, gradually lose efficiency. And here is the critical point. These processes are not fixed. They are influenced every single day by the signals your body receives. When you eat, when you move, how long you sleep, how connected you feel to other people, all of these send biological instructions to your cells. Instructions that either accelerate the aging process or slow it down. The people who live to 90 in good health are not genetically lucky in most cases. Research from twin studies suggests that genetics accounts for roughly 25% of longevity. The remaining 75% is shaped by behavior and environment. That means the habits you build today are quietly writing the biological story of your future. So what are the 5 habits that keep appearing in people who age well? Habit 1. They move their body gently every single day. Not intensely, not dramatically, gently, and consistently. This is the habit most people get wrong. When the average person thinks about exercise and longevity, they imagine long runs, gym sessions, or structured fitness routines. But when researchers studied populations with the highest concentrations of people living past 90, something surprising appeared. These people were not athletes. They were walkers, gardeners, people who climbed stairs instead of taking elevators, people who walked to the market instead of driving. The movement was constant, but never intense. Here is the biology behind why this works. When you perform low to moderate intensity movement, your muscles contract rhythmically without triggering a significant stress response in the body. This is important because it keeps cortisol, your primary stress hormone, within a healthy range. At the same time, gentle daily movement activates something called GLUT4 transport proteins. These proteins move to the surface of muscle cells and allow glucose to be absorbed directly from the bloodstream without requiring large amounts of insulin. Why does that matter for aging? Because chronically elevated insulin is one of the strongest drivers of accelerated biological aging. High insulin over years promotes inflammation, accelerates cellular damage, and disrupts the hormonal environment that keeps tissues healthy. When muscles are regularly active, even through something as simple as walking, they continuously absorb circulating glucose. Insulin stays lower, the hormonal environment remains more stable, and the cascade of biological damage associated with metabolic dysfunction slows down. A 2022 study published in Nature Medicine found that people who walked at least 8,000 steps per day had a 51% lower risk of all-cause mortality compared to those walking fewer than 4.0 steps. Not a gym membership, not a structured workout plan, just consistent daily movement. There is also a second mechanism here that most people overlook entirely. Daily movement maintains what scientists call metabolic flexibility. This is the body's ability to switch smoothly between burning glucose and burning stored fat depending on what's available. People with high metabolic flexibility tend to have more stable energy throughout the day, better blood sugar regulation, and lower levels of chronic inflammation. All three of these are directly linked to how quickly the body ages at the cellular level. The lesson is not to exercise harder, it is to move more consistently, every day, without exception. Habit 2. They stop eating before they feel completely full. In Okinawa, Japan, one of the regions with the highest concentration of centenarians on Earth, there is a cultural principle practiced at every meal. It is called Hara Hachi Bu. It translates roughly as, eat until you are 80% full. This is not a diet. It is not calorie counting. It is a behavioral practice that has existed in that culture for centuries. And modern metabolic research has started to reveal exactly why it works so well biologically. When you eat past the point of fullness, your body must manage a larger glucose load than it ideally needs. The pancreas releases more insulin to move that excess glucose into cells. Over decades, these repeated insulin spikes contribute to a process called glycation. Glycation happens when sugar molecules attach to proteins in the body. This attachment damages the protein structure and impairs its function. Glycated proteins accumulate in tissues over time and are one of the measurable markers of biological aging. They are found in stiffened arteries, clouded lenses in the eyes, and reduced joint flexibility. Eating less at each meal reduces the glucose burden after eating. Insulin responses become smaller, glycation happens more slowly, and the body has more time between meals to perform its internal repair processes. There is a second biological mechanism here that connects directly to longevity. When you eat in a way that keeps insulin levels relatively low and gives the body sufficient gaps between meals, a cellular process called autophagy becomes more active. Autophagy is the body's internal quality control system. Cells identify damaged proteins, dysfunctional structures, and metabolic debris, then dismantle and recycle them. This process is fundamental to cellular health. When autophagy functions well, damaged components are cleared before they accumulate into disease. When autophagy is chronically suppressed, which happens when insulin remains elevated throughout the day from constant eating, that cellular debris builds up. Over years and decades, that accumulation contributes to the conditions associated with accelerated aging. The people who live to 90 are not necessarily eating special foods. They are eating in a way that gives their biology time to clean itself. Habit 3. They sleep deeply and consistently. Sleep is often treated as the thing that gets sacrificed when life gets busy. A luxury, something to catch up on later. But biologically, sleep is not passive. It is one of the most active and critical periods of biological maintenance the body performs. Here's what happens inside the brain during deep sleep that directly affects how fast you age. The brain has its own waste clearance system. It is called the glymphatic system. During deep sleep, channels between brain cells expand, and cerebrospinal fluid flows through the tissue, flushing out toxic proteins that have accumulated during the day's activity. One of the proteins cleared by this system is called beta amyloid. This is the same protein that accumulates in abnormal plaques in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. The glymphatic system removes it during sleep. When sleep is consistently poor or shortened, beta amyloid clearance is reduced, accumulation increases, and over decades, that accumulation contributes directly to cognitive decline. But the effects of sleep on aging go far beyond the brain. During sleep, the body releases the majority of its daily growth hormone. Growth hormone is not just for building muscle, it is essential for tissue repair, immune function, and cellular regeneration throughout the body. When sleep is shortened or fragmented, growth hormone secretion is reduced. Repair processes slow down. The body accumulates damage faster than it can fix it. Sleep deprivation also raises cortisol levels. And as we discussed with movement, chronically elevated cortisol accelerates cellular aging, promotes inflammation, and disrupts insulin sensitivity. People who consistently sleep 7 to 9 hours per night at consistent times have measurably lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. Lower inflammation means slower biological aging across every organ system. The people who live to 90 do not treat sleep as optional, they treat it as biology. Habit 4. They maintain close, meaningful human connections. This is the habit that surprises people the most. When most people think about longevity, they think about diet, exercise, sleep, maybe supplements. Very few people think about relationships. But the data here is some of the strongest in all of longevity research. The Harvard study of adult development is one of the longest-running studies of human health ever conducted. It tracked hundreds of people for over 80 years, measuring every aspect of their health, lifestyle, and well-being. The single strongest predictor of who aged well and who didn't was not diet. It was not exercise. It was not genetics. It was the quality of their close relationships. People who had warm, secure relationships in midlife were healthier, happier, and living longer into old age. People who were lonely showed accelerated cognitive decline, higher rates of cardiovascular disease, and significantly shorter lifespans. Here is the biology behind why this happens. Loneliness activates the body's threat response system. When the brain perceives social isolation, it interprets the environment as unsafe. In evolutionary terms, being separated from the group was genuinely dangerous. The body responds by elevating cortisol and increasing inflammatory signaling. When this threat response is chronic, when someone feels consistently isolated, they carry elevated cortisol and elevated inflammation for years. Both of these directly accelerate the biological aging process. In contrast, people with strong social connections show lower baseline cortisol, lower inflammatory markers, stronger immune responses, and better cardiovascular regulation. The nervous system of a socially connected person operates in a calmer, more parasympathetic state. And that calmer biological environment is profoundly protective over time. One meaningful conversation per day. One relationship that feels genuinely reciprocal. These are not luxury items in terms of your biology. They are essential signals that tell your nervous system the environment is safe. And when the nervous system believes the environment is safe, the body invests in repair, maintenance, and long-term health rather than short-term survival. Habit 5. They wake up for something. In Japan, this concept has a name. Ikigai. It translates roughly as your reason for being. The thing that makes getting out of bed feel purposeful rather than obligatory. For some of the centenarians studied in Okinawa, Ikigai was a garden. For others, it was a craft. For others, it was a role within their community or family. The specific content of the purpose varied enormously from person to person. But the presence of purpose was nearly universal in people who aged well. Here is the biology. People with a strong sense of purpose show measurably lower baseline cortisol levels. They have more stable immune function. They recover from illness faster. They even show faster wound healing in controlled studies. One large-scale study published in JAMA Network Open followed over 6,000 adults and found that people with a strong sense of life purpose had a significantly lower risk of death from all causes over the study period. The effect size was comparable to the benefits of regular physical activity. Purpose is not motivation. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. Purpose is structural. It reorganizes how the nervous system responds to stress and uncertainty. When a person has a clear reason to be here, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and emotional regulation, remains more active. This dampens the reactivity of the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. The result is a nervous system that spends less time in stress mode and more time in a state that supports long-term health. The people who live to 90 are not living for someday. They are living for something right now, something specific, something theirs. The MESH-P system. You have just heard 5 habits backed by decades of biological research. But information you can't remember is information you can't use. So here is a simple framework to lock all 5 into memory. The word is MESH-P. M stands for move. Gentle, consistent daily movement. Walking, gardening, stairs. Every day without exception. E stands for eat less. Stop before you're full. Give your biology the gaps it needs to clean itself. S stands for sleep. 7 to 9 hours. Consistent timing, deep and restorative. H stands for human connection. One meaningful relationship, one real conversation, every single day. P stands for purpose. Know what you are waking up for, something specific. Something yours. MESH-P. Every morning before your day begins, run through it once. 5 letters, 5 habits. 5 biological signals that quietly determine how fast or how slowly your body ages. This is not a complicated system. The people who lived to 90 didn't follow complicated systems. They simply built small behaviors into their daily lives and repeated them for decades. That repetition is the mechanism, the habits are the signal, and the biology responds accordingly. These 5 habits are not expensive. They do not require equipment, supplements, or special knowledge. They require consistency. And now you have a system to remember them. If this breakdown was useful, subscribe to the channel. Every week we take one topic in human biology and explain exactly how it works in real life. No hype, no shortcuts, just science you can actually use. See you next week.